Hello and welcome back. So, Christmas is over, but we are still in the month of December. So, I decided to do the next movie on Black Christmas, filmed in 1974. So, my shower curtain's really dipping into the 90s and 70s. I was surprised. I thought it was all 80s, but that's okay because I like these movies too. I was able to watch this movie on Roku. Again, commercials, but I don't mind. Let's show you where this movie is on my curtain. Right there, Black Christmas, next to Dolls. This movie opens outside a sorority house where someone is creeping around, looking in the windows, and they spot a trellis that reaches up to the second story of this house, and they use that to get into the attic window. And we now meet the sorority sisters. We have Jess, Barbara, Claire, and Phil. And then we also meet their house mom, Mrs. Mack, and her cat, Claude. Mrs. Mack is probably my favorite character in this movie. She's colorful and just funny. I absolutely love her.
Before booze. There you are. Be drinking and kicking up boys. Oh, shit. You're supposed to be responsible. Think of the morals of every girl in this goddamn house. Alligators come through the gate, but goodbye leg if you get away late. Lollies always love to pop.
This group is having a Christmas get-together at the sorority house, and they suddenly receive a phone call from a person they call the Moaner. After the get-together, Claire goes up to her room to pack for the next day. She's planning on meeting her father and they're going to travel home together. So while she's packing, she hears a noise coming from her closet and she thinks that it's Mrs. Mack's cat, Claude. So she goes to check and we have our first death of the movie.
Who is it? Claude? Who is that? Who is it?
I love how the first death scene for this movie is actually depicted on the cover. I thought that was pretty clever. So now we see Mr. Harrison, which is Claire's father. He's in the spot where they were supposed to meet, and of course she doesn't show up. So he finds out where her sorority house is, and he goes there with the intention of speaking with the house mom, roommates, whoever he can, to find out where she is. So after he arrives there, speaks with everybody, it's now apparent that she is indeed missing. We now cut to Jess, who has some news for her boyfriend, Peter. Peter becomes very upset with the fact that he has no choice in this sudden decision that Jess has made.
I'm pregnant. What? I'm pregnant. Jess, that's fantastic. I don't want it. You don't want it? No.
He becomes really upset with this news and the fact that he doesn't have any choice in the decision that she has made. and the calls keep coming. So now Mr. Harrison has gone to the police station to file a missing persons report, but they aren't really taking him seriously. They think she's just shacked up with a man. Claire's boyfriend, Art, storms into the police station demanding to know why they aren't doing anything about it. We now meet Lieutenant Ken Fuller. He, once hearing the story about what's going on with Claire, decides, yes, this is something that we need to look into.
A high school girl's been murdered. Mr. Harrison's daughter is missing. And now at the house where she lives, the other girls are getting obscene phone calls. Don't you think we ought to look into it, Nash?
So Phil, Jess, Mr. Harrison, and Art join a search party. Right as they're leaving, though, Mrs. Mack tells Phil that she may not be home when they get back because she's going to go visit her sister. Mrs. Mack is packing for her trip, and she hears her cat, Claude, up in the attic. Thinking this is weird, she goes to investigate, and then she finds Claire.
Claude? I can't see a damn thing. Claude? God damn it, Claude, I'm gonna have you fixed.
Jess comes home and there's another phone call. They're becoming more violent and alarming.
Who is this? What do you want? Why are you doing this? Who are you? For God's sake, what are you doing?
I know what you did, Billy! 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 Billy!
Stop this!
So she attempts to find Mrs. Mack, and while she's looking, she's surprised by her boyfriend, Peter. He has shown up to talk about the baby, and he does not like the way this conversation ends.
I can and cannot do.
Jess, if you try getting an abortion...
I think you better leave.
If you try getting an
I said
abortion...
get out.
You're going to be very sorry.
Jess calls the police station to tell them about these calls they've been receiving, and Lieutenant Fuller decides, okay, this really needs looking into. So they set up a tap on her phone, and they tell her to keep the caller on as long as possible because it takes a while to be able to trace a call. Barb is extremely upset about Claire being missing, and so she goes upstairs. Now, Billy visits her in her room while she's sleeping.
It's all right. Shh, pretty Agnes. Agnes, don't you tell what we did, Agnes. Agnes. Agnes.
Due to the calls being too short, the police are unable to trace the first couple of phone calls that come in after putting a tracker on their phone. But one of the phone calls stands out to both Jess and Lieutenant Fuller.
He repeated almost word for word what Peter said to me tonight. Couldn't it just be a coincidence? Oh, God, Phil, I don't know. I'm so confused.
Oh, look, Jess, I really don't think it could be Peter. You know I don't like Peter much, but I don't think he's that sick.
I can't believe Peter would do this.
Now, Phil and Jess are talking about this call, and Jess is becoming concerned that the caller could actually be her boyfriend, Peter. And based on the call that Lieutenant Fuller listened in on, he's beginning to feel this as well. Phil goes to Barb's room to go check on her, and as she's walking into the room, the door closes behind her. It then cuts to Jess getting another phone call, and when she picks up, it's the sound of Phil being killed, but she's unaware that that's what's going on. However, the cops are now able to trace their phone call. Jess gets a phone call from the police station, and they say they're finally able to trace the call, and it's coming from inside the house.
I'll get Phil involved.
No, don't do that, Jess. Jess, the caller is in the house. The calls are coming from the house.
They tell her to get out, and instead she grabs a fire poker and goes upstairs to check on her two friends. Inside Barb's room, she finds both Phil and Barb dead on the bed, and she finally sees Billy.
Agnes, it's me, Billy. Agnes, don't you tell what we did, Agnes.
Jess then runs to the basement to get away from Billy, and all of a sudden her boyfriend Peter shows up out of nowhere. He starts to approach her. Then from the outside we see the police and Lieutenant Fuller pull up to their house, and they can hear Jess screaming. They find her in the basement holding the dead body of her boyfriend Peter. So Jess is in shock, and they later realize that she had killed him. And they think that what happened was after every murder that Peter committed, he then called her, which is why she got the phone calls. It is believed by all that Peter was the killer.
I knew it. I knew it in my gut it was that kid. Why would Peter start killing people? I don't know. He must have made a call after each murder.
It's hard to believe Jess would kill anybody, much less Peter.
Well, she's under. How long do you think it'll be before I can talk? Agnes, it's me, Billy.
This movie was directed by Bob Clark. He's done other movies such as Dead of Night, Porky's 1 and 2, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, and another movie that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on in this video. The stars of this movie are played by Olivia Hussey, who played Jess. She has been she was in Romeo and Juliet, my favorite rendition of it. She was also in It. She played Stuttering Bill's wife, and she was in The Ice Cream Man. Margot Kidder is the woman who played Barb. She was in the original Superman with Christopher Reeves. She played Lois Lane. And she was also in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. This movie was inspired by urban legends such as The Babysitter and The Man Upstairs. It's also considered one of the first slashers and was the inspiration for other slashers, including Halloween, which apparently came around after director Bob Clark said he wondered what a Black Christmas sequel would look like. The backstory of Billy is never explained. They give you hints. It sounds like maybe there was some kind of abuse, maybe in his childhood, toward him or from him to another. You don't really know. And when they leave it open-ended like that, I really enjoy it. I think leaving it out actually adds to the story. The not knowing is what can be really scary and can really get into your head. They did the same thing with Michael Myers in Halloween, where it just all of a sudden one day the kid snaps. So I do truly feel that that adds so much by leaving out so much. A book by Lee Hayes was released in 1976, and it was based on the plot of this movie. So apparently there's some kind of backstory to the sorority house that's in the movie. I haven't read the book. I only recently heard about it, so it would be kind of an interesting read. A remake of this movie was made in 2006, and apparently that one does have a backstory for Billy. And there was another remake in 2019. I haven't seen either of these. I don't normally tend to care for remakes, but I'm interested. Maybe I'll watch it next December. We'll see. In the mid 20th century, people would listen to their shows over the radio. And there was a man by the name of Gene Shepherd who had a show over the radio where he would talk about childhood stories, that kind of thing. So the director, Bob Clark, liked these stories so much that he wanted to make a movie out of them one day. He liked them so much that he was actually late for a date one time because he kept driving around the block until he could finish listening to one of the stories that Shepherd was telling at that time. In 1981, Bob Clark directed a movie by the name of Porky's. This movie was a huge hit and it really made Clark a household name. Now, after the hit of Porky's, he decided that he would finally try to make a movie based off of Gene Shepherd. So he approached Gene Shepherd and asked if he would be able to make this movie based primarily on his childhood Christmas memories. Shepherd agreed, and then A Christmas Story was born, which happens to be my husband's favorite Christmas movie. Look at that. Fun fact with a fun fact. Not only did Shepherd agree to let Clark make this movie, but he was also the voice of Ralphie in this movie. Now, the reason I bring this up is not just because it's kind of a cool little tidbit, but because the way that Clark filmed this movie, Christmas Story, he integrated a little bit from Black Christmas into it, like the way at night, how outside of Ralphie's home, it would be, he would film a scene where it was really quiet, dark, somewhat ominous, and it would seem off if you didn't realize that this was a children's movie. Also, the scene when Ralphie's mother, Melinda Dillon, is on the phone, she has a look of fear for a moment, much like the look of fear that Jess had on her face when she was on the phone talking to Billy. So Olivia Hussey, again, the woman who played Jess, met Steve Martin once. And the first time that they met, he actually told her that she was in one of his all-time favorite movies. And of course, she thought that it was going to be Romeo and Juliet because that was a huge movie. But to her surprise, he was talking about Black Christmas. In fact, he actually said that he has seen that movie 27 times. As I was doing research for this video, I was very pleasantly surprised to find that there had been a fan-made short story available on YouTube. This short story was funded entirely by fan donations through the Indiegogo campaign. The short film, which runs 42 minutes, was completed in 2023 and is titled It's Me, Billy. This story follows Sam, who is the granddaughter of Jess, and her two friends, Emma and Justine. The three are traveling to Jess's home, who has recently passed away, because Sam wants to spend a little more time there before her father sells it. There are some nods to the original movie in here, which I greatly appreciated.
Out here!
The second half to the short story is said to come out in 2024. Olivia Hussey, it's said, was supposed to make an appearance in this film, but due to health issues, she had to back out. So fingers crossed that she gets better and is somehow able to make an appearance. That would just be phenomenal. Both short films are going to be available for free on YouTube. So I'm planning next December to revisit Black Christmas and also do a review on the two short films. I'm actually really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So there you have it. I have seen this movie before. I am definitely going to watch it again. It's got some lovable characters, really cool kills, and it really gets into your head. So I will give Black Christmas 5 coffins. I highly recommend you watch it. My amazing sister-in-law has requested that the next video I do will be Creepshow. She said it's always been a favorite of hers, and it's actually always been a favorite of mine as well. I absolutely love that movie. So that'll be next week. And thank you all for your continued support, and we'll see you then.